sometimes we feel like we have to do all these things at once. And we think that if we keep doing all these things, right, we start adding on these little things and make a couple dollars here and a couple dollars there. And that's the way we get all these other, we hear streams of income. But sometimes if we just focus on the one right now, you get to the goal and then build the income levels off of there.
This is the Multifamily Journey Podcast, show 41.
You're listening to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. In this show, you'll hear industry experts share tips of success and failure from their real estate investing journeys. You'll get a transparent look behind the curtain while you learn to fulfill the lifestyle you want to live and achieve your wealth goals. Get ready for the journey to financial freedom through investing in multifamily real estate. Here's your host, Blake Dailey.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Dailey, and got a really great guest on the show today. It's Jason Yarusi of Yarusi Holdings. Him and his wife, Pili, run that company. They have over $75 million under management, 850 units, and have done it in such a cool way, starting from running a construction company, getting into the single family game, getting, doing value add projects and building up their portfolio there. And then sold it off because they realized the scalability wasn't there. And they pivoted into multifamily and took all that experience, that snowballed it into the bigger deal. So I think this is going to be very applicable for everybody across the board. And also what he's saying about, building the narrative of your own life, waking up to set your day and really create it. It is what you make it. So I think he really cuts through the excuses I think a lot of people have, and his story is like a shining example of how you can, set your goals, set where you want to be, and direct, your day and your actions and your day to day on that. And then how he incorporates his family is all really good stuff. So I really enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys do too. And as just an update for me, where I'm at right now on my journey, because I like sharing that in these little intros, is we have closed on the PCB Burr B&B, and now we have closed on the Tahoe Burr B&B as well, starting operations there. The PCB rehab is going. The Tahoe manager, Vinny, he's doing awesome so far. He's getting converted from long-term rentals to short-term now, and we've got our first guest coming actually tomorrow. So exciting times. He's doing awesome so far. So it's cool to see the strategy play out and start to take effect. So, and actually see the bookings coming and some money coming soon. So all good stuff there. Been stressful like no other, but we've been getting through it. We've got good people on the team. So exciting to see. So with that, guys, if you can, please like the show, subscribe, share it. It takes like 13 seconds to leave a review. So if you like this, please do. It helps get the podcast out there. And I guess that's all I got. So let's get into the show. All right, Jason, welcome to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. It's awesome to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Psyched to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. So just getting started, why don't we start off with, you, like who you are and like before all the real estate stuff, how we get here.
Yeah, sure. Well, a lot to unpack there, but my wife, Pili, and myself were multifamily syndicators who invest actively across 850 units, mostly spread across 4 states. We're now in Tennessee. We met in New York City. I grew up in New Jersey, and that's really when we started our syndication business. We were there in the East Coast. Didn't come from a real estate background. We actually met in the restaurant and bar world. So I was in a lot of different capacities. So I had opened restaurants in New York City, opened and sold a brewery. Pili and I, of course, we met in the bar world. And then Hurricane Sandy hit New Jersey, pretty drastic storm. My dad has had a construction company all his life, and his company was targeted to doing storm work, specifically flood work. He moved and raised buildings. And when that storm happened, his business exploded. It went from, doing projects each year to just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of calls over the course of the next 5-6 years. So when that happened and the business just went from moving to just, on a NASCAR racetrack, my brother who was working for us, Pili, and myself, we moved out to New Jersey and really just tried to help dad just take the business to the next level, just really help him make his dream come true. So we went out there and it was great. It was great working with family. It was great doing that part, but we just knew that wasn't going to be the ultimate destination for us, right? So we wanted to find ways that we could control our time, control the narrative of our life, and just really encapsulate where we wanted to be with our family as we were growing it. So Pili was pregnant with our first child, and here we are, so busy with construction, but we heard about real estate, and there was that light bulb where we said, well, that's the space. However, we took that, what seems like the natural step or that first step, and that was Pili got a real estate license. We started actively flipping, wholesaling, do a lot of things that require so much time, right? So here we are, business with construction, where if there was 25 hours in a day, 8 days a week, we could have used them all. It was that busy. And now we just added on all this activity from all these other projects, right? So we're going from 300 projects for construction a year. Now we're adding these flips on there. And we found out that we're going the opposite way from the goal, the opposite way from getting our time back to controlling our freedom, controlling the outcome, right? And we're on that road, but we didn't quite know how to get off that road. And it came that Pili found a friend who was buying rentals out of state. And there was this moment when he said, that's pretty interesting. And I said, well, that seems like a reasonable thing for us to do where we could not be actively involved in this. So we brought these rentals, started putting these packages together, these deals where we were putting together teams that could get these rentals in place, get them rented. And of course, now money starts showing up and it doesn't actively require us to do anything. And that was that aha moment when we were just like, man, this is great, but we would need to scale this. We would need to do, 20, 50, 100 houses across the city or multiple cities. And it just seemed like organized chaos. So we kept asking that question, what else is there? What else is there out there that could help us get to our goal? And I came upon apartment building and apartment building investing, just investing in large apartment buildings. And there was that really moment where I said, that's it. If we could do that, where we could put all of our energy into one large building instead of, all these various locations here, we'd be able to create that economies of scale. And what we found is that we were just really watching people who were doing it successfully, that we could benefit in so many ways because we could help the community, we could help the people who live there, we could help our investors, and ultimately it helps us, right? So it was a multiple layer win, which were just the best of all worlds. So we ended up selling the rentals we had, selling the small multifamilies, went all in on large multifamily, just took in everything we could back in 2016, and then made our first acquisition, 94 unit in May of 2017.
I love it. There's a lot to unpack there. And I think, a good place to start, really good takeaway is starting that construction business. It sounds like you and your family were having a lot of success, making a lot of progress, and the business is growing. Sounds like there's too much business to go around. And, I think it's almost easy sometimes to get content in that and think business is going really good. But what I heard from that, like the business was kind of running you, right? And sometimes you're so stuck in it. I've been here, and, the people listening probably feel that way sometimes too, like just working too much and you're just staring at the bark on the tree and you don't see the forest, right? And you had this new family and you wanted something more. So how did you go from, being in that business to making that first rental? Because I think there are a lot of people in that space, working too much and want that more passive income. So what did that first rental look like for you, that first real estate investment?
First, it's to step back and ask yourself, if you stop right now and don't do your job, what happens?
You don't make money. Yeah,
exactly. Right. And that's like anything, like construction, right? So we were busy working, right? But what happens when storm work goes away or business goes back? Like things stop. Right. And we are now trading time for money, like most are. And if that's the goal, like that's fine. But if you want to find your time back, then you have to look at it that there has to be another way. So as we were transitioning here, we were transitioning when we were moving from those small multifamilies into that first multifamily. We were still doing the construction because we were finding our goal, finding our way. And then we stepped out because it was that point here where we said, this is a direction that could give us the clarity we want in our business. But it also made a big decision where we had to stop the flipping, the wholesaling, all these other active things that we were doing on top of it, right? Because sometimes we feel like we have to do all these things at once. And we think that if we keep doing all these things, right, we start adding on these little things and make a couple dollars here and a couple dollars there. And that's the way we get all these other, we hear streams of income. But sometimes if we just focus on the one right now, you get to the goal and then build the income levels off of there. Because when we have all these streams of income, they take so much energy, but you're not really scalable because you're not doing your best at it, right? So you have like 10 different things going on, but you're not having energy to go into all of them. So they're kind of just doing something, but they're not really giving you everything that you want, right? But if you could just get rid of them all, put all of your energy to the one that's the lead horse, take that and drive it, and then build your business from there, that's where you can create wealth. That's where you can create a business, and that's where you can grow and scale.
Yeah. And I think that's true in a lot of areas of life too, right? Like if you're in the gym and, you do 2 curls and then go do 2 tricep, extensions, do 2 bench reps, like you're not getting enough repetitions on any one thing to really build muscle. And the same is true in business. Like you have to get your repetitions, and that's in a lot of cases doing deals, being involved in stuff. So for you guys jumping on the single family stuff, when you first got started, did that look like building rentals and doing burrs, or like, did you guys get started in flips? What did that look like in those early stages?
Yeah, we actually, very involved, because we come from a very involved construction company. So we actually take houses, and I'm sure you see it where you are down there. We actually lift houses. That's my dad's done. So
there's a lot of it down here in the South, swampy areas. Yep.
So we were taking the houses and we were actually picking them up to put a basement under them. We were basically taking capes, but not stopping there. We were picking them up a second time. So making them the 3rd story, and then putting a new ground floor level, which is now the 2nd story in there. So we're adding footprint, right? Because we could do that cheaper to add the footprint than it could be on the resale value. So now we're getting it out of the flood zone. We're putting a garage underneath when it didn't have parking before or have off-street parking. We're adding in doubling the square footage right now. And then we're now really just adding massive value to the neighborhood. However, the things that caught us, and it was part storm, part just because of the busy, was that there was in that process a lot of things that we couldn't control, where we can control the work. But when you start getting to a lot of projects here that are surrounded by things that are getting busy because of other things like the storm work, things became out of our control. So to do this, New Jersey had a requirement where you had to have all of the gas lines cut in the street every time you did a house line, right? So they would take the meter, then they would cut and cap the gas line in the street. And then to do that, they would come back and resplice it, and then go and of course put the meter back, right? So, or tie together, right? And so when they would do that, on the front end, it may take 4 or 5 weeks for them to get there, and on the back end, it could take a week to 6 weeks for them to get there. So now we lost control of the timeline. So our projects were dragging out dramatically because we were losing all these timelines to things like utility companies. Because what would really be the snowball effect there is that the permitting process couldn't start till you had the gas shut off, right? And so now we get into the permitting process. Now they're backed up because they're getting, instead of getting like 10 permits in a year, and some of these times they may be getting hundreds because of the storm work, right? So now they're getting delayed in. So that 20-day window, right, 21-day window that they have there in the town is now at the gate. You may be waiting 2.5 months on a permit. So now we've just gone from shutting utilities off and 3 weeks for our permit. So we're into a job in 3 weeks. It could be 4 months into the job. And then on the back end, the same thing. We had to get the gas lines, reconnected, and then get the, of course, closeouts so we could finish out the job. So a typical job, we could do it in 3 months, ended up taking 9 months, 10 months. Wow. And it was that timeline there that we started getting killed in the gaps because there were so many things that were outside of our control.
Man, I feel like you're speaking to like the frustrations that I'm dealing on one of my rehabs right now. It's like every box you have to check is like contingent on another box and another box. And if you're getting into like these rehabs, definitely find somebody in the city who can help you, navigate all these and kind of learn your local codes. But it sounds like through those projects, kind of learned the value of value add deals, right? You're adding square footage, you're adding footprints, you're adding, maybe a second unit or something like that. And, in different areas in the South, maybe it's raising houses up and creating that extra space underneath, which is still above the ground. And, other areas might be the basement, and I might be adding an ADU in the back. So you guys were doing this value add on the single family side. And it sounds like having a little bit of success with getting good projects and good value, but they're stretching on forever. And is that kind of what pushed you into thinking, all right, we need to take this at a bigger scale and get more passive because we're running this business and now we're so involved? Like, what did that kind of pivot look from that point?
We just said there had to be a better way to be able to accomplish more just using our energy as managers, right? So we had come up, from doing a lot in the bar, restaurant, in the brewery world, just doing a lot by just putting people in good positions to win, right? And that was able to grow our businesses and help us grow the business, right? But with real estate, we had to be so actively involved in these projects just because of all the intricacies that we could do, that there was only so much of us from a limited capacity, right? And I see that with my dad's business, is that there's only so many people that are, really experienced to go out and move a 1700s stone house, right? So he's got the knowledge. So it's not like he can go and say, okay, here's what you're going to do today, and just send someone out to the job site, And so it sets that point where has himself actively involved because of just how limited that knowledge base in there.
Kind of becomes his own bottleneck.
Correct. And so you have to look at this to say, well, for multifamily investing, we can put people in position to win because we could control the narrative by putting, best in class third-party management in there, giving them a plan and making sure the plan works for the property, getting their opinion for how it's worked on other properties, and then look at how that plan's being implemented and then pivot accordingly, right? And that allows us to have that view of the work being done, but not actively going out there to do the work when we're not being able to watch the project, right? So if we're in the apartment building, working on electrical or changing a light in the apartment building, we can't focus on the plan about trying to find a water saving strategy across the whole building, right? Because we're too busy on one task. That's a task that doesn't fit the narrative for where we want to be, right? For someone, that's the right task. Maybe they want, the $20 or $30 task, right? An hour task. But for us, we're looking at the bigger number of things. We're trying to step ourselves out and say, is this a task that we should be doing? Or can we find ways to utilize our strengths in a different way?
Yeah, that's really big. And what I'm pulling from that is really the scalability of what you were doing. You found through experience that it just wasn't there and didn't reach your goals. You and Pili together with what you're doing, like being so active was counter to what you wanted to do. And once you realized that, made the pivot to the bigger deals, which have the on-site management, have the higher, incomes and bigger numbers to be able to build those into the business model. Right. So going from there, at that point, when you're lifting these houses and doing the flips and the wholesales, what was your kind of first foray into multifamily investing, and how did you make that pivot? Because it sounds like you were very busy, had a lot going on, and I'm sure it was a big transition for you guys to focus on one large deal at a time rather than all these 5, 6, 7, 8 single families at a time.
Yeah, I remember working in the bar world, and we were running this really big New York City outdoor bar, and we took it and grew it 25 times in the revenue. We worked the owner, and it was magical. But I realized all of the growth happened when I stopped doing things, when I started empowering people to do things, right? And that's part of multifamily, is that we can put people in the positions to do good things and not try and do everything and really just handcuff them, right? And just try and say, oh, I can do it best. That's where the growth can happen. And so for a multifamily, we got real specific with where we wanted to be, right? We wanted to be in Louisville, Kentucky. We looked at the submarkets, found the submarkets we wanted to be in there. We wanted to find a 50 to 100 unit building. That was the ideal property we were going to go out to begin with, right? So we found an offering. Really, it wasn't marketed. It was through a broker, wasn't marketed, whatever the story is there. However, the ownership wanted $3.2 million. And we came in and we offered $2.1 million. We gave them the narrative, this property's not even worth close to this. Put the offer in through, our property manager brought it to us and told us about it. And they came back, countered at $3.2 million. We said, okay, thank you. I appreciate that gracious counter.
Time. And this was the 94 unit.
94 unit. Okay. So, but we walked away and we said, thank you, just left it, and about 5-6 months later, we went back and saw it was still kicking around. I think it had fallen off with that broker, still out there, right? Still out there. However, now we said, let's go back and offer again. And the story of this was that the father, who was in his 90s, had passed away. The kids who were out of state are like 50s and 60 years old. So not really, we'll call them kids. But they own this property, and somewhere in their mind, they had heard this price point, right? Somebody gave them this magical price point. Well, they were probably getting offers that were, somewhere comparable with mine, right? Because that's where it was. So we came back in, we raised our purchase price $50,000. So nothing dramatic. We came back in, we were at $2,100,000. Now we're at $2,150,000, right? So nothing to break the bank here. All of a sudden, 3 hours later, we get 2.6 million counter. And we're like, oh.
All of a sudden, 600,000 just fell off their asking price.
No. 6 months changed a lot, right? But what seems to have been the narrative is that everybody else forgot about it, made the offer and said, whatever. And so now the project was out there and it was just kind of deserted, right? So it was just out there and they didn't want this struggle. They had a bunch of single family houses that dad had, and they felt like that was easier to manage than this, 94 unit. So we got into this 94 unit, negotiated, we got them down to 2.6, ended up purchasing it for 2.3, right? So almost $1 million off the purchase price. It was a home run deal. The owner had taken fantastic, he had built the properties in the 70s, had taken fantastic care of them, but the operations were just really poor. There was no one watching the operations. The leasing lady couldn't collect checks. So they're having a ton of trouble on collections. You had to take them across town or do something funny to deposit them. They had 3 maintenance guys there who were doing nothing because they didn't need 3, right? They actually had a wrestling ring set up in the basement. They weren't.
they're down there spending their time.
Correct.
Sprawling. That's hilarious.
They had what was it? They weren't collecting pet fees. They had about 6 units or they weren't accepting pets, but they had 6 units that had pets in there. This was a area that the overall submarket vacancy was 2%, or like 2.3%, right? Wow. But they had 6 vacant units. However, the rest of the area, there was 300 plus units around there. There was like a combined like 2 vacants, right? However, you go across the street, you pay exact style buildings, you would pay $100 more in rent for same property here. And they were charging less rent, charging $100 less. And they had units that were rent ready, and the lady just wasn't showing them. She just didn't care. We actually, when we went and toured the property, she watched Dog the Bounty Hunter. And she just was so annoyed that we were even there that she didn't want to deal with us at all, right? And so there was this perfect storm where there was all these things happening that we took the property over and it was so easy. We never had to market that property. We had so much foot traffic in that property where all we had to do was pick up the phone, answer it, and we could rent the units. We were capturing $100 rent bumps just on classic units out of the gate. We put in proper application, proper processes. They had 2 laundry rooms that were they were the only laundry rooms around all of these areas here. One was defunct and the other one was down. We put them back online. We actually got rid of course, the wrestling rink, surprisingly.
Oh man, I thought that'd be an amenity for the tenants.
Yeah,
they'll battle out for a 3 months rent down here. Fight club in the basement.
Yeah, exactly. You can wrestle down for an additional concession.
Yeah.
Took that and made storage units. And so we took that and made storage units down there. So we're renting out storage units for tenants. The leasing office was a 3-bedroom. We split off one of the bedrooms, made that the office, and got a 2-bedroom back out of it. So we got an additional unit out of there. So we brought it at 93, made it to 94. What else did we do? Well, we got a cable contract in the building, got a laundry contract in the building, opened up the laundry rooms to other tenants in the area right there. We put in a water savings plan. We cut down the water bill, I think, by 30%, which saved or added about 320 or 350K to that building right there. So a massive amount. And after 1 year, we had a blackout on the loan. After 1 year, we refinanced, pulled out all the capital out for investors.
Oh,
at that
effectively became a big, huge burr. And it sounds like just across the board, you had like incorporated every value add strategy in the book. You added units, you had water savings, you had, added pet fees, you increased collections, you renovated to get the rents up to the market. You had laundry income that you added and storage income and so much good stuff there. And I think the importance there is, when you're underwriting properties, for those listening, look for these things that Jason's talking about here is like, where can you add extra units, right? If your market is really hot, like you were saying on, 1 and 2 bedroom units and you have a 3-bedroom unit, where can you split that off? Can you add laundry income? Can you add storage income? That's something we did in our apartment complex that we closed on in February was we added storage income, and that's, extra $40 per unit there. And there's like 18 units now. So looking for ways to drive up your NOI is going to increase the value of your property because they're valued on the income approach. So everything that Jason's talking about, raising the effective income, reducing the expenses, contributed to you pulling out all the capital. So a perfect burr on 94 units, which is huge. I mean, that's a first deal. It sounds like you guys really knocked it out of the park there. And I think it all comes back to really the timing, right? The persistence in getting the deal in the first place. Because a lot of times people might just say, oh, my offer didn't get accepted, move on to the next one. But you stayed with it. And for the sellers, the biggest thing is always the timing, like it's the motivation. So you said the father or whatever passed away. And that caused motivation, and the timing changed for the sellers, for the family, and you were still there, right? Ready to deliver and make this thing happen. And then when you have a good location, it's going to play out. If you're looking at market demographics and you're having, $100 per month rent increase, or, it's $100 more across the street, and you have the same unit, I mean, right there, you have built in, operational income. So that's awesome. That's a great, first deal breakdown. I love how you mentioned all those value add strategies, everything you did to break that out. I think that is really huge. So for you guys pulling out that capital, did you complete like the last R, in BRRRR, buy, rehab, refinance, repeat, and just rinse that into in the next deal?
We didn't have one at that moment. We had one about 3 months later that a lot of those, majority of those investors went back into over there. So
yes, they saw you knocking it out of the park. Of course, they're going to invest again. So yeah, that's awesome. Because when you deliver, make your investors happy, and you got investors for life. That's awesome.
Yeah. We actually ended up selling that deal about another year after that, because we had Path of Progress, which we didn't anticipate, come right down the pike. A big property right next door to us that had been owned by the ownership forever. It was really dry. We were keeping some things at bay that we could do. Like, we could have split off utilities. A couple of things that we couldn't do because we were being hampered by that property got taken over by another ownership group. They started doing premium units, right? So we were getting all these rent bumps and classics and all these other parts here. So they started doing all these things that were driving a whole nother layer to the area right here. So there was new capital coming into the area. So I saw this as just a really ideal time to just source where offers came in. And we were at our 7-year mark in 2 years and above it. So we went out there and kept it on time. We're able to sell that property and just crush it for investors. I think we were able to, I think we were 25 months in or 26 months in. We sold that property
in just over 2 years. That's awesome. Hey, I got to apologize in advance. My lawn guys are here. So if you hear lawnmowers,
no worries, man.
It's like one of the best hires I've ever made is the lawn. So I don't have to worry about it. That's huge. But yeah, that sounds like an amazing deal to get started and establish you in the area. You were able to do the next one in 3 months. So, I mean, it seems like, from the start, it was really strong because you had the background of, running the business and, understanding operations from that, and doing the same thing in the single family game. And then just kind of snowballed that experience and those skills into the next thing. I think that's really important for the people listening. Like Jason didn't just wake up, at 25 or whatever, buy his first 94 unit apartment complex with no background. So this is not something that just happens overnight, but build your progress, do a single family deal, learn the process, do your first BRRRR, get rehab experience like Jason had, and keep rolling that in as you build it up, your skills build, and you're able to go, do these bigger projects. So I love kind of the progression you took, being super busy and overwhelmed, and making that pivot into, getting passive income with the rentals, and then hitting that hurdle of this isn't very scalable, but, taking that next step to get into multifamily, which has the efficiencies built into it. And one thing I wanted to bring up too is, what I've heard about you, over other podcasts and stuff, is how you kind of built this business around your family too, which I love. It's a big kind of a motivator to me. And I see that, and it really inspires me to kind of do the same with my own family. So can you just speak to that a little bit? Cause I think that is awesome. Like, how you, incorporate your family into this, and how you and, Pili are kind of partners in, doing all this together.
So we have 3 little ones now, 6, 4, and 2. And it's just been great to show them what we're doing. And now moving down to Tennessee, we can even be a little bit closer. We closed on the building last week. We could just drive over there and say, this is the building we're closing on. We're going to make this a better place for people to live, right? Because they can start understanding that narrative here is that not everybody has a great place to live, or all places to live aren't fantastic, right? So we're going to go make this a better place to live. And for that, it affords us to be able to do a lot of things that we want to do. It affords us to be able to spend time with you or go places with you when we want. It affords us to, if we want to homeschool you, be home with you and homeschool you, or take you on trips, because we're able to help others. And when you help others, the ramifications of helping others grows, because it comes back to you even if we're not asking for it, right? So you start teaching that narrative is that, you see that building, how it looks now, and then we'll go back a couple of weeks later and show them what it looks like then, right? Just show them the progression of why things are changing, how things are changing, how people can be happier to live here, how kids like them can live there and have fun, right? Because now there's things to play on or other things to do. They even if they're young, they can start getting that. They can start understanding.
Yeah, it's building an amazing foundation. I got to think that, they're seeing that and learning. And then also, you hear often in the real estate investment space is like how you build generational wealth. You can 1031 and eventually pass these down to your family and all of that. But I think that's in action with you and with your wife is, showing your kids this and creating kind of what is going to ultimately be that generational wealth that passes down. And that's the power of it, right? When you align your goals, your life goals, and put your, business, whatever work goals to achieve that. And I just think that's awesome. And I know you talk about that in Fit Rich Life, right? I checked that out, all the blog posts there, helping people out. So that was really cool to see. And I think it was in there I read, or maybe it was somewhere else about the 432, waking up at 432 every day. So I'm an early riser too. I do I'm a Miracle Morning subscriber. And like, for me, that has been one of the biggest things. I implemented it early on and it just kind of stuck with it and helps me align my day. But can you break down your process? Because I want to learn something, maybe make mine a little bit more efficient.
Well, I just found a way, because we find that we make a lot of excuses for ourselves not to do things, right? And there's no one around, especially as you grow older, to say, oh no, you got to get up and do this, right? You can just not do things, right? And so for that point, you have to continue to set the narrative to get yourself moving, right? So 432 is this the time to get up, and I say 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So when it hits 4:32 a.m., alarm goes off, and I get up. Right? Because most people, they set their alarm with the notion is that they have snooze around them, or they have a couple extra alarms already set right behind that, because they set the alarm, but they're not really going to get into it. So they set the pace getting out of bed is that there's already a loss. Right? They've already created a loss in the day, and they've given themselves an out, because so many times we need to make that call and we don't want to, right? We'll put it off, or we need to get that paper or get that offer or underwrite that deal or talk to that investor, but we just put it off, right? Because we just find a way to have an excuse. We want all the things, right? We want to be, watching Netflix in a mansion, right? But we don't want to do all the work because we give ourselves all these reasons why we can't, right? What I found with having kids is that you think, Pili and I from the bar world, we used to do everything at nighttime. All of our activity, we're talking into the wee hours in the morning is when we operated. Well, as you transition into kid world, that no longer is going to work, right?
Changes real quick.
Yeah. So you change that quick. However, when they're up, it's them, right? It's not, hey, I need to go take some time for me. It's them. That's kids. And we're here to do that. So I found that I have to get up early to set the narrative for me for the day, to take the space for me, to understand for me and get my mind state, because we know we have a day ahead of us. The day, no matter how perfect we try to make it, it's going to have dead ends. It's going to have roadblocks. It's going to have things that aren't perfect. That's fine. But when our day starts in chaos, it's like getting up and trying to jump on a moving train, right? And that's how so many people start their day. They get up, they're maybe hit snooze, they go back up, they eventually get up late, they're groggy, they run in there, they eat something poor, they can't really, talk to their wife or their kids, or they're having time because they're late, they missed something that they didn't finish from the night before, they're out, they get stuck in traffic, now they're late to work, the day gets in, every little thing becomes a big thing because they're not ready for it. The day goes by out of control, they get to the end of the day, what happened, right? They look back, say not anymore, and then the next day repeats, right? And then this goes on for weeks, for months, for years, because we don't get off this train. I found that I have to get up in the morning. So I'll get up, I'll drink a glass of water, I'll have a cup of coffee, I'll meditate, I'll go out there, I'll work out, I'll do some brain games, I'll read. And then really by that time, usually Pili is up and I'll take over with the kiddos, whichever of the kiddos are up, she'll go take the time for herself, right? And now we both can set the day with the control at our side. And now when things come up, as they will, cool, we're in our mindset. So we're ready. When things come up, we can focus on those things, get them off the plate and get back to all the things we have instead of living a day that's out of control.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely huge. And the same is true for me. I feel like when I start my day, start my morning strong, the day follows, right? If if you're waking up, like you're saying, to being rushed and getting overwhelmed with, emails and all that kind of stuff, you never take that you time. You never have that reflection. You never have that, forward thinking to, outline your day and plan everything that needs done. And if you're starting from behind, you're never going to get ahead. So for me, and it sounds like for you too, is starting the day strong is a big key to having, strong days and creating continual process, because it builds a discipline in you like, hey, if I can't, if I'm going to snooze, I'm hindering myself. And to have progress, it starts at the beginning, right? I don't know. You can't just like stumble out of the blocks, in a high performance game and still win the race. So I think that's really important. So I love that you do that. And I love the way you the 4-3-2 thing. Mine's 4:15 because I used to wake up at 4:30 and I was like, man, I really wish I had that extra like 15 minutes to just, I incorporated yoga, and that I thought was like, this is for like hippies that do it on the beach or something. But I started doing yoga and I was like, I get the blood flowing, like that extra 15 minutes gets me going, just gets everything moving better. So that's awesome.
Yeah. People think you can't get up early. You start getting up a couple minutes earlier each day, right? And just set the narrative. Because if you're listening and you're at a pace where you're just not happy where I am, well, if you just keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be where you are. Like there's no dramatic change that happens from consistently doing the same things if they're not in line with your goals. Right?
Yeah. And I think on that too, like how many times do you hear people making the excuse that I don't have the time? Yeah. Well, create the time. Like you have to do it. And it's going to be, I promise you, it'll be harder if you do it in the evening, like after a long day of work or, dealing with the family and the kids and the job and all that stuff. If you make that time for you in the morning, I think that's, you have to make the time, you can't make excuses. And like, if you want to succeed, like you're saying, so that's really good. So I wanted to pivot now into where you guys are now. And I think I was reading you just closed and working on a 93 unit in Tennessee, expanded into the Tennessee market.
Yeah, we closed that. So we closed the 93 unit in November. We closed a 65 down there in Louisville. Right around that time, we actually closed another 24 unit here in Nashville submarket last week. We have a 36 unit closing Tuesday down here in Little Rock. So we've been pretty busy with the year coming out of the gate.
I was going to say, it sounds like you guys got a lot of progress going so far in like the last 6 months. So that's awesome to see.
Yeah, it's been good. So we have just had two of our properties we exited on. We have another one that's under contract to exit, would be, I think, early September. So we've been moving along, really just keeping the pace. We aim to do the work, to be in the place to have one opportunity, a close a quarter, right? Now that doesn't always happen, right? So last year we closed one in the first quarter, but we closed three in the last quarter. Well, we're doing the work to put ourselves in a position to close a deal a quarter.
Yeah, that's been my goal as well. We've been on pace so far. We've got our next acquisition lineup for Q3. We just had two recently, and for us, we made a pivot away from, not really away from, but just kind of like a temporary hiatus from like the big multifamily, because we found it to be a too competitive market and the margins were getting too slim for us. Maybe it's just not focusing enough on the deal flow, but have found a really good kind of strategy in our Airbnb model. But I'm curious for you, what have you seen to kind of be your surge? Is it something you have been doing? Is it, something the market's given you and you're jumping on it, or, kind of what have you guys been doing to create that deal flow?
It's the same thing, just keeping consistent with our message, getting in front of people, letting them know what we're looking for, right? So 24 unit, the 93 unit, we had a partner on there that we have three partners. One of the partners I had never worked with before. It was the other partner I knew very well. That partner I never worked with before brought me into this 24 unit because he found it through, as he's an active new construction flipper, right? So he found it just through, he's like a warrior out there with lead generation. So found this property here. We took that down. The property in Little Rock, a banker that I work with a ton, he's from Little Rock. He grew up there, knows it well. He had a friend who was just like, hey, this property's out there. It's being marketed by a residential group. They're just not getting out to anybody. So we got in front of this property. It's in one of the best areas in town. We're able to get into the property, right? So, but it's being clear with our message of what we're trying to do, right? And what we're going to look after. So we can again get away from us having to do all the work and empower others to get in front of finding us opportunities, right? So, and not just putting all of our eggs in one basket. So I'm just going to call the broker, hope he has something for me. No, we're going to do a lot of work where the brokers will have deals, but how many other ways can I get in front of deals?
Yeah, that's so good, especially right now with this really competitive market for people that are looking for the deals. Like you can't rely on one strategy. You can't rely on one person, especially one broker. And I love that you're branching out and you have deals coming from other sources. So can you kind of speak to those relationships? Is that just, I mean, I'm sure the consistency in building the relationships over time, but how you've kind of set these strategic people. You said one came from a banker, one came from a partner. How do you put all that together and kind of balance all that going in, like in the top of your funnel?
It just is that point that if you continue to do what you're going to say you're going to do, then people will like working with you, right? And I see that on the people I like working with, right? And so it's that easy narrative is that we create those relationships, we continue to talk forward, right? And it's mutually beneficial, right? So the banker found this awesome deal. Of course, I used him for the loan. He got us a great loan on the property, right? So that works tremendously. But now that's led us into Little Rock that we're in front of another opportunity because of this, his broker friend there said, well, hey, there's this other property here that we know is going to go out to market because the group's from Florida. They're not doing very well managing it, so now we're in front of the other one, right? So you just continue to keep your ear out there and just talk to people and not just wait for the phone to ring, right?
And it's that whole law of the first deal thing. It's like when you get that first deal, you put so much time, effort, and energy into that one, and then boom, here's the next opportunity because you delivered and said what you're going to do. And that is the same thing. It sounds like that you've experienced now in different markets, right? If you can deliver in that market, the people there, know you're a closer. They know you can deliver. They know, in Kentucky where you've gone full cycle with deals, they know that, you can add the value and get these things and deliver for investors. The investors see that, the bankers see that, the contractors you work see that. So man, it just speaks, Jason, I think this is a, very relationship business and reputation for sure. So if you can build that good reputation, progress is going to, and deals are going to come to you, but you have to be persistent and stay consistent, persistent action. So I think that's speaking volumes for you. Where do you guys see yourself heading? I know you said a deal a quarter, but what's the next, year or so look like for you guys?
So we're going to continue on that same narrative right now. We're going to continue pushing forward. We're really bullish in the Nashville MSA. So part of the reason is that we love being down here now. We like all the path of progress. We like all the.
Is that where you guys at, or in Nashville?
Yeah, we're down in Murfreesboro. So we're right down here. Yeah, so we're down here. The two deals we've closed are in Murfreesboro. So it's been
good market. Yeah, it's all bleeding out of Nashville, just south on 24 there to Murfreesboro.
Yep, it is. And so a ton of action coming this way. So we really like what's happening here. We'll continue pushing this, right? We'll continue pushing this forward here because it's that same path, right? So many times if we look for the shiny object out there, it gets us off the path and stops what you were talking about, the consistent, persistent work to do, right? So we're just going to continue the narrative, continue to building the team, right? So we have a great underwriter on our team. She's been crushing it just on all the deal flow that we have coming in here, just getting things in front of us. We have other people now gaining to our team right now, so we can continue to scale and continue to do the roles that we need to do, which are, of course, lead generation money.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And I think it really speaks volume to, the systems you've created in your business, because that consistent, persistent action is probably the most unsexy part of the business. Like you talked about last year, had one in Q1 and then had none for Q2, Q3, and then boom, 1, 2, 3 come in Q4, 3 deals all at once. So, I mean, that's just how it goes. Sometimes you have to push through all those hard times. You have to, make the calls, send it out. And if you don't send it out, it will never come back. So I love that you guys are, sticking to that and doubling down and continuing with the same because you've seen it, play out well for you guys. And I think that's true for everybody listening. You have to put it out. You have to fill the top of your funnel and stick with it. There's so many people that get burnt out and that don't see results and then never finish. And what you're saying is if you stay on track, keep your blinders on and know what your goals are, kind of follow your big why, you're going to come across opportunities. So I really like that.
It's like that reticular activator, right? So it's like when you start putting your energy into looking for something, it starts appearing in front of you, right? And so if you want to buy a new car and you want to buy a blue Chevy Tahoe, it starts seeing it everywhere in front of you. And it's easy for you to see that opportunity, right? And so that's the best thing to do is put all your energy into focusing on that one thing, right? Not trying to be into flips, wholesales, Airbnbs, multifamily, because then you can't identify the good opportunities. If you want to do one space, get yourself into that one good space. And so large multifamily, we put our energy there, we put our energy into one market, then we can build into other markets, right? So we didn't start and go into all these markets. We started in Louisville and started really growing from Louisville into other markets.
Yep. And as we get to the end here, we really just brought us full circle. We started at the beginning, said at the beginning, you have to get your reps in, right? You have to focus on building that one bridge and cross it, right? You're never going to get to the island if you don't build your bridge. And that's what you guys have done. And you made it. So that's awesome. Love to see all the progress. So Jason, now let's transition to the
Fortune 5.
All right, Jason, these are the 5 questions I ask every guest every show. So let's dig into them. First question, what is the biggest thing that has contributed to your success?
Stepping back and just looking at what I actually want. I think that's the first part, is that so many times we put our success into what other people have instead of looking at what actually we want and we want to achieve, because then that can give us a destination to go after.
Yeah, that's really good. And what has been your biggest mistake so far that's turned into a learning lesson? Partnerships early on in the restaurant world, partnered with a friend, and we had, we aren't friends anymore over the business. So we had a disruption over it. And it was just, I'd rather have the friendship than ruin over that point. But it was because we weren't clear on the outline of the partnership before we started it. Right. So when you go into that without clear expectations, there can be ill will because, one may think they're supposed to do something, or one may think they're supposed to do more or less, or is doing more or less. So it's just setting clear narratives with the partnership. Yeah, that's really good. That's something my partner Jake and I have been really adamant about in our Airbnb business. We just closed 2 deals in the last couple of weeks, and we have another one upcoming in August. And we're building out this business together, and we're really clear. And just had the candid discussion up front. And we've been good friends through basic training together. So I think that's like a must if you're going to get in a partnership, is have those discussions up front, and then also see each other when you're bald and wanting to cry and go home. That doesn't help, or that doesn't hurt either. Next, what is your favorite book that you'd recommend to someone starting out?
That's a good question. I always say the last book I read, right? So there's always ones. I think I'll look at this one. Ryan Holiday, Still This Is the Key, is really good, right? Because so many times we're looking to do so many things that we forget to slow down and look at what is actually in front of us, what needs to happen.
What was the title of it?
It's Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. Yeah. And we just find that our days are so busy with stuff that we feel like we have to do, right? And so imagine you're carrying 50 plates and you feel like you got to carry all those 50 plates. Well, what if you just drop them all? You'd figure out what you actually do. And maybe you really just need to be carrying 3 of them. But so many times we feel like we have to be doing all these things, right? And those 3 are the important things you need to get done, right? So it's getting back to the core of what needs to be done in your life.
Yeah. I think that goes back to the reflection we were talking about earlier, and setting aside that time to just think, and reflect and not get caught up in the day to day. So that's really good. Stillness is the key. I'm gonna have to check that one out. Jason, outside of real estate, what do you like to do? I know probably really active with the family, but what are your hobbies outside of that? Yeah,
I run a ton. I'm really big into running. So that's one of the things I love to do from there. And then family, man. You got 3 young kids. So it's a ton of time just going to all their sports, watching them grow.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Love it. And last question here of the Fortune 5, where can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, awesome, man. Appreciate you having me on the show. YarusiHoldings.com is where you can find out about us, company, go over, or if you want to find me on Instagram, Jason Yarusi.
Yep. And that's Yarusi is Yarusy or USI, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I just want to make sure. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Awesome stuff, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Jason. This was awesome. From the beginning to the end, packed with value. Love the value add strategies that you're doing in the multifamily space, and obviously seen a lot of growth with this. I think people are going to get some really good stuff out of this episode, and hopefully bring it all together, kicking off their new morning routine. So I appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
All right. We're out of here. Hey, thanks for listening. If you like the show, if you found value in it, please go to iTunes and leave a rating and review. If you want to check out more on your multifamily journey, go to multifamilyjourney.com, where you can get free resources to start your journey and figure out your path. That's multifamilyjourney.com. But more importantly, go take action today towards your financial future. See you next time.